Every stick of RAM stores a certain amount of bytes of RAM that we can use. Now you can't just look at the chips or anything like that to give you an idea. And whether it's DDR, DDR2, DDR3, that has nothing to do with it either. That's just speed. So when we're talking about the capacity of RAM, it's actually kind of fascinating. The RAM chips, the way their internal organization is based on a square. So in this particular example, I'm holding a piece of RAM in front of me that is 256 megabytes, which in today's world is incredibly small. Just because of the way RAM is manufactured, when they make a bigger chip, they tend to make it, because it's a square, they double each side. So if you think about this, if this is 256 and it's a square, when we double each side, we're in essence making it 4 times bigger. So the next step up of RAM is going to be 1 gig, and then from there, 4 gig, and then from there, 16 gig. Get the idea? Now, when we talk about RAM capacities, we're going to say things like 1 gig, 4 gig, 16 gig. However, you can also find RAM that's going to be like 512 meg, 2 gig, 8 gig. That's only double. And they do this by doing something very interesting called double-sided RAM. So if we take a look at this stick I've been playing with, if we flip it over, look at the back. There's no RAM sticks on it. So this is always going to be a single-sided stick of RAM. However, if we take a look at this guy right here, you'll notice that there's RAM on both sides. Double-sided sticks are very, very common. The only downside to double-sided RAM is that there are a few motherboards out there that might have a problem with it. So one of the things we always want to check is we're going to look at the motherboard book and verify that it uses double-sided RAM. Okay, so now that we understand the difference between single-sided and double-sided, the next thing I want to talk about are channels. So I want to take a look at this motherboard here right in front of me. Take a look at this. We've got 4 slots where I can snap in RAM. Now, that's pretty common on most of these desktop motherboards, is that you have these 4 slots. However, let me show you another one. And in this case, you're going to notice that it has 2 slots. In fact, there's plenty of motherboards out there today that can have 8 or even 16 slots on big server systems. The reason we have so many slots is because we want flexibility in terms of our RAM. In general, when you're inserting RAM into a motherboard, you count all the RAM up and that's your total RAM. So if I put in 2 8 gig sticks, this system has 16 gigabytes of RAM. If I put in 4 8 gig sticks, then this system is going to have 32 gigabytes of RAM. However, we do something that's known as channels. So if you take a look at these, look at all 3 of these boxes. Now if you look at this, you'll see they're sold in pairs. There's 2 in here, trust me. Even this one, you can actually see the 2 RAM sticks. RAM is almost always sold in pairs these days. The reason they do that is because pretty much all motherboards use this concept called channels. So if we zoom back in on this big motherboard in front of me, what we're looking at is a very common situation where we have today called dual channel memory, which means I have to put 2 RAM sticks of the exact same size and hopefully speed into very specific slots. In order to determine what those channels are, it's always a little bit of fun, so I had to dig through the motherboard book. I'm actually going to see if we can bring this up on the screen. So first of all, we have a little diagram that orients us to this motherboard right here, so I'm actually turned 90 degrees, but we can figure it out. If you take a look right here, it tells us that these 2 that are closest to the CPU fan are channel A, and the 2 further away are channel B. If you want this computer to run as fast as it possibly can, you will put 2 sticks of RAM in it because it's a dual channel motherboard. Dual channel is really common these days. For a few years we had even triple channel where you always had to put 3 sticks in, but it was the motherboard that told you what you had to do. Using channels makes some amazing stuff happen. In fact, when I'm talking to the RAM, when I'm using channels, I can literally talk to both sticks of RAM at once as though I have this huge, monstrous, super fast piece of RAM. Now, on a lot of motherboards that require dual channel, if you try to put 1 stick in, it won't even boot. And in this particular case, he's showing you a situation where you can put in 1 stick of RAM and it will work, but I need to warn you right now, when you boot this thing up, you're going to get a big error thing. It's going to say running in single channel mode, which is actually telling you that you're not taking advantage of the power of this motherboard. So let's take a look back in here. If you're only going to put in 2 sticks, you have to put them in 2 very specific slots. Don't put them in the other 2. Don't try any other combination. The computer probably won't boot up. And if you want to put in 4, well, that's easy. Just fill them all up. The only other trick when it comes to channels is that you really want to make sure that you're putting identical RAM in any one given channel. So on one channel, you want to make sure they're the same speed, you want to make sure they're the same capacity. That just has to happen. On the separate channel, and you could do this, although I personally don't like to do it, you could put different speed RAM in. I would recommend against it. Some motherboards are persnickety about it. I'm really persnickety about using the same speed across the board. However, what I can put in that different channel is different sized RAM. However, that starts to make for some interesting counting. So you ready? Play along with Mike. So let's say we're going to go ahead and put 2 sticks of 8 gigabytes RAM in here. So according to the motherboard book, we snap it into these 2 slots. That's going to give us a total of 16 gig of RAM. Now you don't have to put the same capacity in the other channel. So let's say we put in 2 4 gigs in the other one. That's a total of 8 gigs of RAM. So 16 plus 8 means I've got 24 gigs of RAM on this system. So if we take out the 2 8s and put in 2 16s, remember they have to be identical, we now have 32 plus 8, which equals 40 gigs of RAM. This creates some really interesting scenarios. Like say I've got a motherboard that only has 1 channel on it, 2 slots like the one we just saw, and let's say it has 2 4 gigabit sticks in it. In that case, the total capacity of that system is 8 gigabytes. So somebody comes up to you and they go, hey, Mike, I would like to add more RAM to this computer. And you have to tell them that, well, in order to add more RAM, there's only 2 slots, so we're going to have to take 2 sticks out and put more in. That always confuses a lot of people. They're like, why are you giving me RAM back? I just wanted to add more. And the answer is, you only had 2 slots. So when it comes to RAM, be careful with your capacities. Understand that you have a certain number of slots and a certain number of channels. Motherboards are these days almost always dual channel. And remember, more than anything else, the motherboard's the key. It's always going to tell you what to do to get the right RAM capacity on your system.